Good morning, people. I just want to get on here and dispel a myth about criminals and how they'll always get guns. Always getting guns. It's bullshit. When you examine the fact that most European countries have actually strictly regulated guns since their existence, there really hasn't been a high number of both mass shootings and just general shootings um, in public and in private since the beginning, right? One country you can look at for where the gun regulations stopped the criminals from getting guns and dramatically reduced gun crime. Australia. They were on pace with the U.S. We obviously eclipsed them greatly in population size and gun ownership, as well as gun deaths and gun crime. But again, when adjusted for simple variables like this, we find that Australia is a prime example of how, hey, now I think they're under 500 gun deaths a year, or even less than that. They could be less than that. It's been a while since I looked at the numbers, but I do know factually they are significantly less than the United States. And in '96, when they had the mass school shooting, they washed their hands of the whole situation. Nope, give them back, and that's what happened. So that is a big citation for the reason why criminals will not always get guns. And then we have the idea that I've got a lot of people that push back against this, and they say, well, America's only had mass shootings in the last 30 years. That's not fucking true at all. You're completely omitting like the Valentine's Day massacre, some of the massacres that occurred with the Prohibition, and then the expansion westward into Manifest Destiny and what we called the Wild West. Why did we call it the Wild West? Oh, I don't know. People were dying by the dozen, and not just because they lacked the necessary antiseptic medicines and techniques to prevent simple infection, but also because they were shooting each other in mass. This was literally happening. I mean, what do you call the shootout at the OK Corral? Was that not a mass shooting? More than however many people died. What was it? Four people died. Or two people died. But after that, when Wyatt Earp rode with his band of marshals, I think they killed some 40 cowboys without trial or jury. That's a mass killing. I don't care if it's sanctioned by the U.S. government. That's a mass killing. Then you're omitting the lynchings that occurred on freed black men during the late 1800s and early 1900s. You're omitting the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of innocent natives, especially children and women. And how did they do that? Oh, by gun. And again, I don't care if it's sanctioned by the government, which, yeah, it might have been sanctioned by the government, but in some cases, some of these slaughterings and these massacres were committed by private companies and committed by completely private entities. So let's try and remember that there's a lot more context here. And the Second Amendment was actually a direct response to the strict gun regulations of the European nations, just so everyone knows, as well as the fact that they were debated in the hot issue of the day of the idea that our founding fathers overwhelmingly, by consensus, were against standing armies. Why were they against standing armies? Oh, because standing armies could be used as a tyrannical force against the population of a country, obviously. And the reason why they believed in gun ownership was so that anybody claiming to be a soldier asking for quarter could be defended against, because this often turned out to be not true. Many of the people that claimed soldierdom turned out not to be soldiers at all. And this also explains what amendment is that? The Third Amendment, the right to not quarter soldiers. Yeah, there's so much context to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia during the 1780s, wherein the Articles of Confederation were completely scrapped and we redrew the Constitution as we have it today. So There's so many variables. Now, one more variable that I want to check on and I want to make a good point of is that the European nations that heavily regulate the guns don't just heavily regulate the guns. They also provide universal health care. They provide free college as well as free childcare, as well as just free education all around. And one of the most important aspects of what they provide is that strong social safety net, is a strong education system, and I wouldn't say a good mental health care system, but okay. In most countries, it does the bare minimum, and they think that that's good enough. We'll leave it at that. That's a discussion for an entirely different day. But again, all of these variables culminate in a low count on the overall shooting death as well as stabbings. The stabbing deaths is really low as well. So that's it. That's as much context as I'm willing to give you in this video. I don't want to keep everybody bored for however many minutes, but yes, that is some truth for you right there. Criminals will not always get guns. Guns are not like drugs. You can't pack a gun into a plastic bag and hide it in your asshole and take it through the metal detector at the airport. It doesn't work that way. It's not the same thing. Criminals will not always get guns in the same way that people will always be able to get drugs. It's totally fucking different. And good regulation, along with good social safety nets and a strong social welfare and education program, usually culminates to positive conflict resolution amongst the populace and a strong ideation of intelligence and intellectual honesty that usually prevents people from using violence as a conflict resolution. So, like, subscribe, stick around. I got more coming. I've got so much to talk about. I've been meaning to do this for years, but I think now is the time. Just so everybody knows, my name is Brian Kubisak. I'm running for school board in District 430 of Sandwich, Illinois, and I'm going to keep this going. I'm just going to spill it out. My positions on my topics, or not my topics, but the topics, very scientifically backed, very, very, very well-founded. I love to read, and I will continue to research these topics as in-depth as I can. And I also consult alternative sources as well. So by all means, I'll start getting on the citation of my sources for that. But I think most of what I'm saying should be general knowledge. If you went to school in America, you should have this data at hand. And if you don't, Google it, you lazy fucks. All right, have a good day, everybody.